Hey, so someone today asked me how to get into UX design or UI design, as well as like how to become a web developer in general and work at a startup. And I figured since this is something I've been doing, working at startups for the past, I don't know, 15 years, I felt like now would be a good time to um, just kind of talk about how to do that. And yeah, so I'm going to just go through a bunch of my notes on this and try to point you to as many good resources as I can on how to get started in this field. So the first thing where I started was with lowbrow.com. This was back in on my high school days, and I would refresh this site every day. And every day it would come up with a new unique story about like the lowest time in someone's life, or just like a little like weird story about their lives. That's like slightly depressing. And in high school, I was obsessed with it. It's long since gone down, and it actually went down when I was in high school. And so I thought of why don't I try to resurrect this website? So I started this website called Storylog, which is also no longer around. But I started it on WordPress, and then I learned Python and Google App Engine in order to get it online. And it was just like a really simple site like lowbrow.com where you could just submit stories. They were supposed to be true stories. And when you refresh the page, you would get a new story. And that helped me get my first job because I took the working app for Storylog that I'd built on Google App Engine into my interview and showed them that I was able to create a real product, and that got me in the door. So that's how I got started with working at a startup and doing some basic like web design and programming. The next thing I want to point out is that I'm an internet native, so that means I've just spent far longer on the internet than like a normal person, kind of to my detriment a lot. But I've also just kind of sucked in a lot of like how I like browsing the internet, what kind of websites I like, how I picture, um, different user interfaces working, just expecting things to be fast and smooth and to like instantly um, be right in front of you. And I think that's something that a lot of people have these days. That a lot of people spend a lot of time on the internet, but I think I had an advantage when I was first starting out because I literally lived on the internet. So just having that everyday experience of just like having websites be my environment, when I went to like design my own website, I couldn't really settle for something that didn't load quickly or didn't look nice or didn't have good typography. And I'd say that's probably one of my top tips is just like spend a lot of time on these websites that you really enjoy, that look really nice, that you feel good about using, and use those as inspiration for your own website. And if it doesn't match up in some way, if it's not loading quickly, then try to fix that. Try to make it closer, match your favorite websites. So the first question um, someone sent me was, what makes an awesome remote developer? And I'd say that it's the same thing for any freelancer. They've got to provide real business value. They got to be focused on that real business value. And this is something that took me a long time to realize because for me, it wasn't really about business value when I first started out. Like I told you, I was working on a story website, a story blog, where people could just post anonymous true stories. And so that didn't have any business value to it at all. And for a long time after that, I worked for a company called Better Lesson. I was just focused on providing a really good user experience. I haven't worked at Better Lesson for a very long time, so this website is not, uh, design. I didn't have any part in the modern version of this. It looks very, very nice though, and they've come a long way. But at this company, when I worked here, my top concern was just like good user experience. Is the user happy? Are they experiencing like a fast website, something that makes sense to them? I was doing a lot of user testing, stuff like that. And I wasn't as focused on the end goal of, is the company making money? Is the company converting customers? Is the company conveying its value enough that it's able to make money? And making money, I always thought was kind of a bad thing, but I learned over time that actually people are more than willing to pay you for your products if they're valuable, because they want to see you stick around. They want to see you survive. If you don't survive, they lose this awesome tool. So if you start thinking about your products from that perspective, and trying to make money as quickly as possible in your startup journey, that's going to really matter a lot. And if you can kind of convey that you care about this to any business that you work at, they're going to be grateful by a long shot. They're going to be used to, babysitting developers or, fighting with designers to, to just like get the product out the door. But if you can convey that, while you do really care about the UX, you also care about them making money and delivering value and having a good brand image, that's going to really give them a lot of confidence in you. The next thing is just caring about the user experience. That's just like, are you being polite to your users? Are you treating them like human beings? Are you considering what they might be going through? They're probably incredibly busy, don't really have a lot of time for your product. So if you make the experience really easy to use, your brand is, the value of your brand and the value of your product is going to go up. And then just focused on the end goal. So this just means like if you're given a product to build a new web app for a company, and you're focused on all the details, right? You're focused on how to design the web app, about learning a new technology, about your own personal development, about a million and one things. That's not really what someone's hiring you for, right? They're hiring you to have the finished product, right? They just want something that works and it works well enough for their users and they can release it. And so above all else, you don't want to make over promises and then under deliver. You don't want to focus on these tiny details that aren't really going to matter. You just want to you want to focus on the ultimate goal of, can I deliver the product they're looking for in the amount of time that they want it in? And if you can't, you can push back and you can say, hey, I need more time, or I need to do more research, or whatever. But if you can set that final goal as your ultimate concern, and you don't have to make your company look after you and keep track of you, that's going to be incredibly valuable for them, because your boss is super busy, right? No matter what company you're working at, your boss does not want to be concerned on what you're working on every day. So if you're focused on that end goal, that's going to put you leagues above where anyone else is. Okay, so let's move to the next part. Where do you go from this point? So this is from the perspective of someone that has a little experience doing some JavaScript development and knows a little bit about design, but they want to understand the importance of user experience and user interface concepts. And I would just say, watch people use what you built. So there was a site I used back in the day called usertesting.com. But these days you can just, they've since gone more into the corporate, super high-end market where they charge a lot of money. So you don't want to do that. But you could just get on a Zoom call with someone, or just get on a Google Meet or Google Hangout call, and just watch someone use your web app from scratch. So don't talk to them about what's going on. Let them kind of just answer the questions for themselves, and just let them know they can, you're going to be the one that's embarrassed that they, they're doing perfect no matter what they're doing. And just watch them go through it and try to figure things out, and try to get them to think out loud. And if you can do that even just 3 times per app you build, or per version of that app you build, you're going to get so many insights into the user experience. You're going to understand things that a lot of designers and engineers do not understand, because when it comes to building a web app, everything is just so nuanced, and your users are going to miss things that you thought they couldn't possibly miss. There's going to be a button right in front of them, and they're not going to know to click it, and it's because you didn't you didn't use the right word, right? You used submit instead of save, right? Or you used new item, and it's obviously a button to you. It says new item, but they're expecting it to look a little bit more like a button, right? Maybe it doesn't have rounded edges. Or a really great example I heard about is Weebly. Back in the day, they wanted to simplify their sign up page, and so I don't know why my internet's not working right now, but they wanted to simplify their sign up page. So they actually removed every field except for the email and password field. And someone went to their website and they said, I don't understand how to sign up for an account. I see the login form right here, but like, how do I sign up? And they were assuming that it was a login form because it just had two fields. And normally, on every website you go to, a login field has two fields, right? Whereas the sign up form usually has at least three. So because there was only two fields on their sign up form, they were like, where do I sign up? And they weren't reading, the text, even though it said, I think it said sign up right on the top of the page. But most users aren't going to look at that or aren't going to read the text on your page. They're just going to be like, oh, I've seen a sign up form a million times before. I just know what it looks like. And in the back of their mind, they're going to say, well, this obviously isn't a sign up page because it only has two fields. So things like that, you're only going to get at once you watch people use what you've designed. And you just got to watch them over and over again, have them fail over and over again. You're going to learn those little lessons that are going to give you an advantage over everyone else who's designing and building web apps. The next thing is Refactoring Ui. So this is a book by Steve, I don't know how you say his name, Stroger. And he has it at the end of this Twitter thread. If you go to refactoringui.com, this is the single best book you can buy on design, on modern web app design, in my opinion. And I've read a lot of books. I've seen a lot of articles. This is just by far the best. It's simple. It's to the point. It's beautiful. They have beautiful designs. And they talk about all these little tips. And if you don't want to buy this because it actually is a little bit expensive, if you're not convinced that it's worth this, which, by the way, it totally is worth this amount of money, I would even get the complete package. But if you're a little skeptical, just search for Steve Schoger design tips, and you're going to come across this Twitter thread where he goes through all of these little design changes that he makes and explains why they improve the design. And you'll see, instead of using a bunch of lines in your design and cluttering the design with all of those lines, you can actually spread it out a little bit, give it a little bit more breathing room, show the highlighted state, but not really any more lines, and give softer colors to kind of separate the items. And you're going to end up with a much nicer looking design that's a lot sharper and feels a lot more modern and a lot more focused, instead of like kind of an old school, early 2000s design that's a little bit cluttered and a little bit too tightly coupled to its data, where like all you're really doing is you're saying, oh, I just want to display this list. Let's just put a line in between each of those. No, you're actually paying attention to how the user's interpreting the design. And he goes through that a lot with a lot of these different tips, just talking about how you can add a nice little thing to your design by moving up this form and adding a little bit of contrast, a little bit of interest to your sign-up form. So this thread is highly recommended. You can learn literally like a semester's worth of design just from this thread, just from studying this thread. And really, really, really good tips in here. That would be my top recommendation for UI tips. As far as the UX goes, yeah, you just got to watch people use what you build, and you just got to build new things and pay attention to how you use websites. So you might go to, a website, like let's say it's bbc.com, and you might realize, oh yeah, I don't actually read very much. I just kind of scan and I just kind of look for headlines that might be interesting to me. Well, guess what? You're not alone. Most people are browsing the internet that way. Most people aren't reading, every headline. most people are looking for images that are compelling to them, or looking for one word inside of a headline that resonates with them. They're not usually reading the whole headline, and when they are, they're not usually reading the whole article. And that goes for the same for your web app. People that are signing up for your web app and actually using it, they're kind of assuming things work a certain way, right? So they're assuming, certain items in your sidebar are drag and drop if they look like it. They're assuming if something's, has like a little dotted line around it, it's probably editable. I don't know, just all these little visual cues. Not every web app has those things. A lot of web apps just have buttons, and that's pretty much the only interactive part of them. They're just kind of like advanced forms where they just have inputs and buttons. But just look at that, because a lot of the time that's what we're looking for when we're browsing the internet. Just normal people, you're looking for the button, you're looking for the headline. You're not really reading a lot of the text. You don't really care about all of the text. So pay attention to how you browse the internet. Most likely, that's how a lot of other people are browsing the internet too. Okay, so just trying to move quickly through this. The next part is, in your opinion, how much user experience / UI should you know before you start prototyping? I would say just start trying. Go to figma.com. Figma has an amazing free plan where you can have up to 3 projects, and it's a state-of-the-art design tool. You'll be able to use it for free, and it includes prototyping, I believe, with the free plan. So yeah, design and prototyping. So you're going to be able to create clickable wireframes, and you could probably even find some starter kits for Figma. So if you search for like UI kit Figma, you're going to come across a lot of templates, right? And Figma even has some on their own site, and you can kind of find out, you can download these and start using them in Figma, and just like drag them around, drag the buttons around, drag the screens around, and kind of feel out how this is going to feel to you. Also, the other thing that I wanted to mention here, which is one of my top resources, is Google's material design components, material design library. So I'm not saying you should use this library. This is a library for developing web applications, and it includes buttons and tables and forms and all kinds of UI elements. But if you go to this design tab at material.io/design, they actually have a whole methodology to their design. So if you click through this, you're going to see they're going to explain the different types of design, how they're laid out, all the spacing, how things should be spaced out. That's not a really super good example. They have, they have components here somewhere. I mean, this is a good example, but they have, here, maybe components. Yeah, okay, sorry. So they changed this navigation recently. But if you go to components and then you go to, let's go to data tables. And you can see they have an interactive demo here. So you can kind of get a feel for what it is to, what it's like to use it. And then they'll explain the principles behind the design and the anatomy behind the design. So like how everything's organized. And this is my favorite part. They show you the spacing. So they show you how tall each row should be, the padding between, each section, and what that's going to look like, the visual kind of metaphor that you're conveying when you have this type of spacing and when you have this kind of iconography. You're just going to get a sense from that just from reading through this, because this was made by really high-class designers who know what they're doing. And even if you just use these rules right out of the box, you're going to get a lot of value just from that, right? And they're going to talk about color too, and this is important. We'll go through that a little bit later. But yeah, just try. Don't be afraid to just like load up Figma, start playing with one of their UI kits. You can, as I said, you can search Figma UI kit. You're going to find 1,000 results from 1,000 different people. Just pull one of those UI kits in and start playing around. And don't be afraid to copy. One of my favorite places to copy from is Dribbble. They have excellent designers here. And let's see, if we go to Explore Shots, you're going to just see some of the most gorgeous, most beautiful designs you've ever seen, even animations and stuff. But you can see, like, let's just click on this. Look at this drag, and then the clicking on the different things, and then you can see the pizza. Like, this is just one of the first things I clicked on, and already you're seeing like how talented these designers are, and you can get a lot of ideas from these people in terms of like how you should lay something out. You might not want to go as full tilt as a lot of these Dribbble designers go, because they really go all out, and it can be hard to feel like you need to keep up with them. But in general, I find this to be a really good kind of oasis of great design. And if I'm feeling frustrated or struggling with a design of my own, I'll just come here and just kind of look at different colors, different layouts, and eventually I'll stumble on something that inspires me. So don't be afraid to copy from other designers or just from your favorite websites, right? If you're building, a social network, go to Facebook and see how they do things, because they've probably done a ton of user testing. The next thing, this is the number one rule about UX and UI design, don't make me think. It's also a book. And it's the best book on, I think, information design that you could ever read. One, because it's just beautifully simple in the way that it explains, how you're going to approach design. You want to use a hierarchy of content. Your headline should match the page title. Just basic things like that. Very, very common sense things. But also, it's just like, this is kind of like the primary rule you kind of want to look out for, is don't make me think. When someone goes to your website, if they go to yourwebapp.com, I don't know what's at yourwebapp.com, so I'm not going to go there. But if they go to yourwebapp.com, they're not expecting to want to have to think very much. So you want your web app to look like every other web app to some degree. And what I mean, oh, shoot, don't go here. Sorry, I forgot I was logged in there. So if we go to like Trello.com, what I'm trying to convey is like the inside of your app can be a little bit different, be a little bit unique. But some things you don't want to change are in the top left, you want your logo. In the top right, you want your login and sign up buttons. In the middle, you want some kind of sign up or CTA. CTA is just a call to action, so it's just a button you want them to click on. Down here, listing features together with some images makes a lot of sense, because it's what they're going to expect to see. So you don't want to violate your user's experience too much, your user's expectations too much. If you're starting a startup, you want to have a landing page, you want to have a sign-up flow, and then you want to dump them into the app after that. I've learned this the hard way, because some of the apps I design, I don't have a landing page for. I just dump users straight into the actual web app, and it doesn't work well. People don't expect it, so they don't really know what's happening. So you definitely want to have those expectations being met, especially when someone's first coming to your web app. And that might feel a little bit limiting, but it's actually not. There's a lot of flexibility and creativity that goes on with the headlines, with how you present your features, with how you talk, with the personality you convey. And then once they actually get into your web app and they start using it, you can introduce some of the things that make you different there. But yeah, you want to be as familiar as possible to people. Figma, I already mentioned that. And then basic design concepts. Maybe just look this up, just Google this. I found this article after Googling this. Alignment. Obviously you want to align things on the page. If something's a pixel off, like you have like on this website, right? If you had this headline and then this paragraph was like the whole thing was indented by 10 pixels, it would just feel like everything was off. So alignment matters. Hierarchy, like I said, matters almost more than anything. I would actually put this at number one. I think if at the top of your page, you have your headline and you have some idea of where you are in the site, right? Through some kind of navigation, you're already, on a good track, right? So you just want to have that hierarchy so that people know where they are. They can figure out where they are from, um, the headline that they're currently at. Contrast, this is something I use a web app for. It's called Contrast. Sorry, not a web app, a Mac app. So it's called Contrast, and you can select your background color and your foreground color, and it's going to tell you whether that meets the minimum contrast ratio for readability. So if we look at this one, for example, this probably isn't going to meet the contrast ratio. You can see it fails. So if you had all of your lighter text on a background that was this light, that probably wouldn't be a good idea. Now, luckily here, they've gotten around that by having a lot of shadows from side to side, and actually looks pretty readable, especially because the text is so large. But like if the text was small and it was all this light color on all this light blue color, it would be hardly readable, and you'd probably not want to use that site for very long because it would strain your eyes. And also it's inaccessible because there's a lot of users that have different capabilities in terms of eyesight, and so you want to be aware of all of those people out there. Repetition, obviously you want to keep hammering home the same message across your site, so you want some kind of consistent brand story. And if you want to learn more about brand story, I'd say the best one is Story Brand. It's nicely named, but this is a book, Building a Story Brand. I would highly recommend this book. It talks all about how your company is not the protagonist in your customer's journey. The customer is the protagonist, and your company is the guide that is helping them along their journey to fulfill their mission and to accomplish their goals. Proximity, so this is a huge one. Basically, if things are near each other, they're going to look like they're related. And if there's a little space between them, it's going to look like they're different items. So you want to really pay attention to how close things are. You notice all these navigation items are pretty close together. That relates them as a single navigation item. These things over here are pretty close together, which relates them as login and sign-up flow. And these things are pretty close together, which relates them as all social share buttons. So proximity matters a lot in design. I'd say this is really, really high up there also. Balance. Obviously, you don't want large parts of your page to be filled with content. Like your top left of your page is a ton of content, and then the bottom right is totally empty, right? You want things to kind of have a symmetry to them. Color, so this is an interesting one. I use a color tool called Color Dial, and what I do with this is if I'm looking for a similar color to something else, I can select these analogous, compound, triadic, complement colors, and I can usually find something that kind of matches this color to use in my design. But I often find it requires a lot of playing around with. Usually with colors, I just kind of have to get a feel for the color. So these actually don't help as much as you would think. But I do use this a lot for just if I have a link color and I want to create a hover color for that link, I'll just darken this regular link color to create the hover color. But Refactoring UI has a lot of cool things about color in it. And also you can look at Dribbble, like I mentioned before. You'll see a lot of inspiration for Dribbble, at Dribbble for color schemes that work well together. And there's a lot of color scheme tools out there too. And then space, obviously you want a lot of blank space on every design to just give the design breathing room. So you see they don't really mind having a lot of space here because this little design is pretty important here. And on either side they have a lot of space, and then at the top there's also a lot of space right here to just showcase this image. So negative space, white space is really not a bad thing and can actually level up your design if you know how to use it, right. So that's just kind of covering the basics. I'd say those are all pretty important to learn about. And as you kind of start designing more and more, you're going to learn like how important these things are. And I would say especially hierarchy, that's like a top one for me. If a user can understand where they are, that's kind of the most important thing. And then proximity, I'd say, is the next most important thing. You just kind of want to like group things that are similar, and usually just those two things, hierarchy and proximity, can totally change your design if you just think about those. You know, if it does a design that you're working on doesn't feel right, just think about those two concepts. Okay, the next thing is, so we already went through the Refactoring UI Twitter thread and the book. Product market fit. So in the email this person sent me, they asked about, or they were talking about how they were trying to find product market fit. And the best video I've ever seen on that is this one by David Rusenko, How to Find Product Market Fit. This is part of the Y Combinator startup school series of videos, and they just go through a lot of really cool things that you want to know when you're starting a startup, when you're starting a company, or when you're just trying to build a product out. And this is one of the best videos I've ever seen from them. He just talks about, and actually he talks about the thing I was talking about earlier with Weebly, because he's the founder of Weebly, where they had the login page and the sign up page. But the most important thing he says is that however many iterations of your product you think it's going to take to find product market fit, you need to triple that. I think he might even say you need to multiply that by 10. So if you think you're going to require 3 versions of your product in order to really find the right audience, chances are you're going to need probably 30 iterations of your product in order to find the right audience and to have them, you know, really resonate with your product and like become kind of dependent on it because it's so good, right? It fulfills a need that they didn't even know they had, and they can't really live without it because it does what it does better than anything else. And I'm not talking about Facebook or Twitter, you know, just like, you know, social engineered, you know, social networks that are meant to waste your time. I'm talking about things like Asana or Trello or Notion. That's another website you can learn a lot from. These guys do an excellent job in terms of user experience and marketing and UI design. I mean, every one of their demos is beautiful. Their app itself is beautiful. It's just a pleasure to use. It doesn't feel like a web app, but it is a web app. So yeah, but anyways, yeah, you're going to have to do a lot of iterations on your product in order to find the right audience and in order to get them really excited about your product. And then the next thing is, as far as creating like prototypes go and getting an idea out there, there are a lot of low-code and no-code tools out there. If you go to producthunt.com, you're going to see a new no-code tool launch on here pretty much every day. And you can search here for, you know, like no code, probably get a bunch of results. But yeah, so you can see like Java board, futures no code. This is like an article. There's like some kind of no code list somewhere. Yeah, no code 2.0. So you could like go here. You could find some tools that will help you prototype your software without really coding too much. And you can find a lot of good things here. There's a ton of these out there though. Like this isn't the only list. I bet if I just search for no code list, I'm going to find a bunch of tools. Yeah, I think this is the one I prefer. But they just have, you know, everything organized into a bunch of different products. And say you're looking for like a form builder, you can just instantly get a bunch of different ideas for, you know, the type of form builder that you want to use for building your web app. And it'll also give you some ideas about how to connect those things, and you can find a lot of resources on this. So if you just want to build a quick prototype, if your goal is really to learn UX and UI, you don't really care about how you made it work. You care about, did you find product market fit? So coding shouldn't matter as much to you if your passion is UI and UX. Use Webflow if you want to. Use WordPress if you want to, if that fits what you're trying to do. There's another one called Bubble. I think it's bubble.io. Yeah, Bubble. So this is great for prototyping software. If your true passion is helping users and just getting products out to users, use some of these no-code tools to just get something out there. And then my other recommendation is my own blog for my own company called it's remaketheweb.com. But I have this blog post called The Low Code Ecosystem. So this is one of my favorite alternatives to no code, which is low code. So a lot of what you're doing here is just a little bit of configuration here or there, a little bit of code just to customize things. But they're handling a lot of the back end for you. So if you want to add memberships to your website, you can go here. You can find some of those options here. If you want to just add a database that you don't really have to configure that much, you can find a database platform here. Sorry, I'm running out of voice. Need to take a quick drink. So yeah, and then here's like another example. So a SaaS is a software as a service. Those are all those web apps that charge you on a monthly basis. And if you want to create a software as a service business yourself, here's a great place to do that. You can just download one of these starter applications, and they're going to help you get started creating your own software as a service. And there's a bunch of different options here. I go through all kinds of different ideas here. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Remake, which is the product I'm working on that makes it possible to build a full application with low code. It uses a very simple syntax, and it lets you build a complete working web application that's editable, and you can remove the items, add items, all with one language. So you're just using HTML for this, and obviously a little CSS to style things. But I just wanted a quick plug in there. But yeah, I mean, honestly, you know, if like you're launching a startup, come to this blog post, go to one of these, landing page template builders, and just like start up, or actually Unicorn Platform is a great place, right? You can just go here, you can build a landing page for your product, and you can start testing out if this is going to resonate with people. You know, just make a headline for your product, add a few feature images, and just, start talking about it. And don't even build your product yet, right? Just start talking about what's interesting about it and see if you can get interest. Because that's going to teach you a lot about how to get people on board, how to build a community, and also help you to define your market, right? So if you kind of explore the market before you start building, you're going to get an idea of what people really care about. And you're not going to have to invest a lot of time in something that might not go anywhere, right? Just because you want to build the features doesn't mean those are the same features your users care about. So that's definitely something you want to check in on. Okay, so this next part, I think we're almost done. So this next part is what should I be focusing on in terms of skills to become a useful startup team member / freelance developer? And I'd say that the number one thing you can focus on is copywriting. By far, this is the most useful thing because you're going to use it everywhere. You're going to use it. You're going to use it on your homepage, right? You're going to use it on every headline, on every page of your marketing website. You're going to use it on every page of your web app. You're going to use it in error messages to users. You're going to use it on every single interface. And if you don't have to rely on a designer to, get you the copy, or you don't have to bother the owner, to get you the right copy every single time, right? Obviously, you do want to, check with them, and you do want to, make sure you're getting their feedback. But if you can kind of go off on your own and create something that really resonates with users and is really good, the people you're working with are going to be really appreciative of that. And in a startup, you're going to have to take on multiple hats anyways, right? You're going to have to take on multiple jobs. And if copywriting can be one of those, it's going to be a weight off of everyone else's backs. Basic design concepts we already went through. That's just stuff like hierarchy, proximity, having a good contrast ratio, uh, and just kind of like paying attention to the different trends out there, the different modern design aesthetics, so that it doesn't feel like you're falling behind. And then, of course, I already mentioned this Twitter thread by Steve Shoger, but definitely check that out. That's going to give you a lot of good pointers. So the next thing I want to talk about is actually like developing your own products. So like the number one thing that a startup's looking for is that you've been able to build something of your own, bring it to market, in a big launch or a small launch, right? It could be super small, and actually like recruit some users to it, get some feedback on it. If you can do that, even with just one product, you're going to be so much more useful to any startup that could hire you. And I gotta say, these are the top two places to do that. Startup School and Pioneer.app. So Startup School is a free 8-week online course put on by Y Combinator. And the most useful part of it is the weekly check-ins with other founders. So every week, it was Thursdays for me. Every Thursday night, I would have a video call with 3 or 4 other founders, and I would pitch them my startup, and they would pitch me their startups, and we would give each other feedback on our pitches, on our ideas, and on the progress that we'd made so far. This is incredibly valuable. You get to, really resonate with other founders, see what they're struggling with, and also just pitch your ideas and see if they're interested in them. And you can even find co-founders through this program. So definitely useful for keeping you, motivated to work on your project and to keep you accountable. So this is hugely valuable, especially in these more, remote times where everyone's working remotely. The next one is Pioneer app. So this is one that was actually started by a Y Combinator. I think he was a partner, and he went off and started his own company called Pioneer. And this is meant to kind of create a startup school that's a little bit more gamified. And I know that might sound bad at first, but it's actually super, super, super useful. You don't have to be looking for fundraising, so you don't have to be actually looking to join the accelerator. But if you do just sign up for this service, what it's going to do is going to ask you to submit a progress update every week, and then other founders are going to give you feedback on your product, on your messaging, and on your progress updates, and congratulate you on all that you accomplished, and maybe give you a little bit of advice on what you could be doing better. And again, you do not have to be looking to join the accelerator. Obviously, it would be great if you could get in and be supported by this team, because they're a really good team. But even just the weekly support and the weekly accountability, it kind of works similar to Startup School. And I'd say this is probably the most valuable free service that I use for my own startup journey, because I just get so much great feedback through these people. They care a lot about the community and about the people that are working on things, and it can be really useful to get feedback from them. The other thing to realize, and I kind of touched on this before, is that people don't care about your product. So I know this sounds harsh, but it's actually not harsh. It's just meant to convey that if someone goes to your website, they actually don't know you. They don't know your struggle. They don't know how hard you've worked on your product. They don't know if they can trust you. And they don't know if you're even trying to scam them, right? So when someone lands on your website, 99% of the time, they're an anonymous internet stranger, and you have to very gradually convince them to even just try what you're offering. So you need to build that trust. And part of what can build that trust is a really good headline that's going to resonate with them. They're going to say, "Oh yeah, I'm trying to start a startup, and this sounds perfect, right?" Um, they're going to wonder if you're addressing a problem that they actually have. Um, they're going to be wondering if you have the features that they need that are missing from other, platforms. I don't know why I'm using Pioneer app as the example here, but yeah, they're going to be wondering if you actually care about them or if you're speaking to a different audience. And that's the first thing you really need to convince them of with your homepage or your, even your pricing page is just like, are you talking to me? Right? And once it's been established that, you know, this anonymous stranger is in your market and they understand that you are talking to them, then you have to build up trust in terms of providing value. So that's value through content. Maybe you have a blog, right? So I think they have a blog here. So is your blog useful? Are you posting about things that matter to them? Are you on Twitter? Are you active on Twitter? Um, are you giving away free ebooks, or are you doing something that they're going to come into contact with you multiple times, throughout a period of a couple of months, right? Because if they just come to your website, you can't expect that they're going to just sign up for your service and start paying right away, right? They're going to need some kind of proof that you're a real person that cares, that's going to be around for a while, that actually has some say in the market, right? You're making moves, you're doing big things. And I think that's probably, there's another website I really like. I think it's this one for building like a personal, oh no, that's not the one. That's not the one. But anyways, yeah, they're just going to be wondering, can they trust you? And so you want to put out good content. That's what content marketing is all about. It's just building up that trust. But just pay attention to that. People don't care about your product. They don't care about your web app. They just want to know, can it get the job done that they're looking to get done? And first, you need to convince them that they're in your market. You're talking to them. Second, you need to convince them that you understand their problem. Third, you need to convince them that you're the right person to solve this problem for them, that you have the capability to lead them from where they are to where they want to be. And then you need to give them a plan that shows them that you're competent enough to actually help them accomplish that thing, step by step, make it a simple plan. And then you want to talk to them about what they really want. And you want to present that thing to them in a way that's going to make sense to them. So if what they want is a really successful business, then at the end of your website, that's what you want to talk about. And if they really want, let's say, to boost their personal productivity, then that's really what you want to talk about on the website. And testimonials can help a lot with that because it's real people talking about what they got out of the product, and that can really resonate with a lot of people to build a lot of trust. Okay, so, and just keep this in mind also when you're actually building the actual interface too. People aren't going to want to read your tiny little notes. Like a lot of people think, if you have a form, like a sign up form, that someone's going to read the little helper text next to the sign up form, right? So like, I don't know if this is the best thing to search. Yeah. But like here, right? Like, that's in French. But like this, right? Like people aren't going to want to read your little like helper copy on your sign up form. They just want to get in to the application, start using it. So it's just simple things like that. They don't know you. They don't trust you. They don't really care about you. They just want to know if you can help them fulfill what they want to do. And I'm not saying that they can't come to care for you, that you can't build a community around your product, and that you can't create even a tight-knit community. But I'm just saying when someone first comes to your site, you have to start building that trust from, the first word, right? Okay, the next question is making money in freelance front-end development really an option? And I would say yes, absolutely. Front-end development is in super high demand. There's a lot of startups out there. A lot of them are trying to bring in money um, and bring in users, and they would die to be able to find someone who could help them, do that. Sorry, die was the wrong word, but they would be very, very grateful to find someone who really cared about the startup, who really cared about the space, and was willing to help them accomplish that mission. Front end development is actually one of the hardest pieces of the puzzle these days. So if you search for front end developer needs to know, I think there's a really complex chart for this. Uh, but yeah, so yeah, let's just look at this, right? So this isn't like the full chart that I was looking for, but like this is just, oh, actually maybe it is. But yeah, this is like just a short little preview of all the different technologies that are used on the front end. Um, of course, the basics are HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but in terms of CSS, you got to learn a lot of different parts of that if you want to be really proficient. And I would recommend Sass and BEM just to be a little opinionated there. And also don't learn Bootstrap because it's a waste of time, especially when you're first getting started. And as far as JavaScript goes, you at least need to know, modern JavaScript, at least a little bit about Webpack and how to compile your app, or maybe Parcel. Parcel is probably a much better place to start, but that's going to let you write modern JavaScript and compile that down into regular JavaScript. But of course, just start with these, right? You're just going to start with the basics, and then you're going to get into all these other things like, React and Vue.js and, Redux or whatever, right? So start slow, start easy. All of these other tools are used to support these three. So if you learn what's hard about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you're going to know the need for these other tools. But if you start with these other tools, in my opinion, you're going to be starting too far ahead. You want to understand the problems with the original technologies that these ones are addressing. And then once you understand these pain points, you're going to be highly motivated to learn these other tools. And you're not going to want to learn all of these because a lot of these are overlapping, right? You're not going to use Jest and Mocha and Jasmine and Enzyme. You're just going to learn one of these. And when you're first getting started, you're not even going to learn any of them, right? You'll probably learn Webpack before you learn testing. But it depends. Your journey could be different than mine. So just take it slow. Just try to learn the basics. Start with some really basic CSS. CSS Tricks is actually a really good resource also. This is one of my favorite resources for learning about CSS. If you just follow this or subscribe to their newsletter, you're going to find a lot of great things. If you just search for Flexbox, CSS Tricks is going to be one of the first things to pop up. I'd say Flexbox and what is the other one? Oh, did I just search Flexbox? Yeah, I did. And Grid CSS. So Grid CSS, another one, going to be one of the first things to pop up is CSS Tricks. These two guides are going to be super, super important. I refer to these all of the time. If you're learning CSS, there's no better layout engine than Flexbox and Grid. And there's some some argument among designers which one's the best. But usually it's more complex than that, right? You're going to want to use Grid for some things, and you're going to want to use Flexbox for laying out other things. But if you want to center items, you want to align items to the left or the right, or have spacing between them, if you want to make them mobile responsive, you're going to want to use either Flexbox or Grid. And usually, just to give you kind of a general opinion, and this is definitely not always the case, but Grid is more useful for overall site layout, and then Flexbox is more useful for individual items. That is, of course, not by any means always true. There are a lot of complex small interactions or small layouts that you're going to want to do with grid too. But just to give you like a general idea. Okay, if you want to see who is hiring in this space, you can go to Hacker News, the Who is Hiring thread. So usually every month, Hacker News, this is another great website you probably want to check out. If you're in the web development space, they have a lot of really great articles every day. But every month they have a thread about who is hiring, and you can just scroll through this for an idea, a small idea of all the different places that are hiring. And you can see how many remote companies there are by just searching remote. And we have 1 out of 169. So yeah, there's probably at least 160 companies in here, or maybe less, maybe like 120, because a lot of these are using remote more than once in their post. So yeah, maybe it's like 80, but still, it's a lot, right? And these are all posted just in like a single thread on a single website. Another website that you want to go to is Remote OK. And this was started by, .io. And this was started by a founder called Peter Levels, and he's in the Maker community. Makers are all about releasing projects often and providing as much usefulness to the community as possible, but just like constantly building stuff. And he has compiled this list of remote jobs that, these are only the ones just from today. And so you can see there's a lot of activity every day on here. You can also find jobs on Reddit. If you're just getting started and you don't have a lot of experience, I would say your first thing should be not looking for a job, right? Obviously you do want to make money, but like just build a few projects, right? Build a few useful projects with just HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And after you've got those under your belt, put those up on a portfolio website. Use something like I forget what that user profile one was. I think it was profile. I don't have it on my list. But anyways, there's another one called Card, and if you go to card with 2rs.co, you can build a really simple website here, like a really nice portfolio website. You can put like a few of your projects up here. This is super inexpensive, $19 a year. So $19 a year, that's like $2 a month or whatever. You're going to be able to get everything you need out of the box with this. There is another one. I actually do want to just search for it. User profile. Oops. I don't think it's going to come up. I follow this guy on Twitter. But anyways, it's like part of the makerspace community. Sorry, not makerspace, maker community online. I'm going to just do one more search for this. I'm going to just search for like, maybe it's like profile.me or something. One profile. I don't think this is it. It might be it. Oh, this might be it. Not that it's like, not that you should use this one, right? Card is great too. But yeah, this is it. So you can create like a really simple personal website, and this is going to be really inexpensive, right? So $1.50 a month, pretty nice for like the yearly package, right? So it's going to end up being about the same price as Card. But you can create like a really nice user profile, put your projects up there, and then once you have that done, right? Once you have your projects up there, go on a site that is easy to get hired on, right? Go to, an Upwork or a Fiverr or a Reddit, thread. There's the For Hire subreddit. Go on one of these. You're not going to make a lot of money, right? You're going to make probably $20 an hour, something like that. But it's going to give you experience. And just do that for the first few projects. Once you get some real projects under your belt, not only are the people who are working with you going to be more willing to pay you more because they're going to know you're reliable, they're going to know you're good, and you're going to have gained that experience, to actually work with them, they're going to be willing to pay you more and give you more projects in the future. But also, you're going to have those things to add to your portfolio, and most importantly, you're going to have testimonials. So if you add, I don't know if this has the ability to do testimonials, but I'm sure it does. And then Card, probably does too. But just add testimonials to your website, add the projects to your website, and you're going to get more clients because you're going to have that like social buildup of like social proof that like you're responsible, you know what you're doing, you have the skills necessary to pull off these projects, and other people say so as well, right? So once you get those initial projects under your belt that are like $20 an hour, then you're going to be able to charge $40 an hour, and then after that you're going to be able to charge 60 and 80, and before you know it, you'll be charging a couple $100s an hour, as long as you are really good at what you do and you've kind of focused in on one side of the market that you really like working in. Okay, so as far as learning React, so this is the last question I got from this person who wants to be a UI UX designer. I would say, so React. Let's go to React. So React is a JavaScript library that's going to let you build component-based applications, web applications, and it works with JavaScript combined with JSX. So you're going to be able to lay out your page based on the state of your JavaScript components. In my opinion, when you're first getting started, using regular vanilla JavaScript is going to be 1,000 million times easier and make a lot more sense. As I said before, you are not going to understand the need for React before you have a 15-page web application with 30 different UI components, and you're trying to fit them all together. You're just not even going to know when you only have 3 pages and 5 different UI components. You're not going to know why you even need React. So you're going to be learning this technology that you don't have a burning need for, and it's a hard technology to learn. There are edge cases. There are things you need to look out for. There are best practices. There are all kinds of advanced things going on inside of React. So don't learn it before you feel like you've hit a wall and you don't know why. Once you've hit that wall with regular HTML and JavaScript, you're going to realize why React is so awesome, and then you're going to want to learn it, and you're going to need to learn it. But before you need to learn it, I would say don't learn it. And also, I would say don't start with React, start with Vue.js. In my opinion, it's a lot easier to get started with. Obviously, React is, you're going to be probably, sorry for that cough, I'm really sorry. But obviously, you're going to be able to get probably a higher paying job with React. But if you learn Vue, you're going to understand the same underlying concepts of React. So you're going to be able to learn React really quickly. And it's just going to be a lot easier to learn. In my opinion, Vue.js is about, I don't know, twice as easy, maybe 3 times as easy to learn as React. React, you're going to need to understand a lot of code, ideally functional programming, ideally like a lot of array methods, and you're just going to need to learn a lot about React's internal API. And not that it has like a huge API, but like, I don't know, there's like some complicated stuff in there, complicated naming, conventions and stuff. I think Vue.js is about twice as easy to learn. So I don't know, take it as you will. I would say though, even Vue.js, don't learn it until you cover the basics of building a few products with just HTML and vanilla JS. And even jQuery. jQuery is outdated now. Not a lot of people suggest using it, but it has a great API, right? It's very, very simple the way it handles things. It's a lot easier to work with than vanilla JavaScript. I would say if you can, not work with it, then don't, right? But like if you're doing some things that are like a little bit complicated and you just want like a really easy way to do it, jQuery is not a bad idea. It's used by like something like 70 or 80% of the top websites out there. So you're not in bad company. And anyone who frowns on it, they just don't get it, right? Building things that work is the ultimate um, goal and the ultimate measure of what you're doing. So if you're building things that work and that people like, it doesn't matter what technology you're using. If you're using PHP on the back end, it doesn't matter. If you're using Node.js on the back end, that's great for you. If you're using Go, on the back end, that's also great, right? But if you're building things that work for people, that people like using, and that you enjoy building, that's going to be far and above your competitive advantage. And yeah, so just before you use something like Vue.js or React, I would suggest prototyping, build stuff in Figma, build stuff in low-code tools, build stuff in no-code tools, try to provide actual value to people, build stuff in vanilla JavaScript and HTML and CSS, prototype some things, get something out there that people enjoy using, right? Then once you've kind of established that you understand that, then you're going to be on the path to becoming a UI UX designer, because that should always be your primary responsibility. It's always to the user. Does the person coming to my website, I don't like calling them users, does the person coming, because I think it just like, I think calling them user kind of distances them from like being an actual person. No, this is like a person like your grandmother or your mother or your brother or like some friend down the street. These are real people coming to your website. They're trying to get value out of it, and they want to understand what that value is and how to use your product. And if you can communicate that, that is your primary responsibility. It doesn't matter what technologies you use. It doesn't matter if you're using the latest framework. In fact, a lot of the people in the maker community, right, Peter Levels, he uses like a giant PHP file to run his business, which is making, I think, like $100,000 a month. I don't even know. I don't want to like misquote him, but he's making a lot of money every month based on a single PHP file. So don't pay attention to the technology or the latest flash, the latest buzz. Do what works. Obviously, if you want to get hired at a big startup right away, you probably want to learn React quickly. You probably want to learn Vue.js quickly. But in my opinion, that's not going to be where the most value for you is going to be. If you're trying to be a UX or UI designer, you want to focus on the user. You want to focus on getting feedback from them. You want to focus on looking at them using your web apps, and you want to focus on communicating value and doing good copywriting. And I don't think you should be trying to learn a framework that literally, could take me a full day just to set up, right? I'm gonna have to set up Webpack. I'm gonna have to set up some kind of node server. Maybe I want type safe and some type safe language like TypeScript. Maybe I want some test bundler, right? And do I use Create React App or do I use some other React starter? It's just a million decisions when you first decide to use a framework like this. It's a million decisions, and they all domino out and expand into a lot of complication when React might change its API next year, right? React might totally be different a year from now, 2 years from now, or React might be old school a few years from now. So you might be learning concepts that aren't really going to be relevant 3 or 4 years from now. And would you rather have invested that in things that are constant, like people and like the way people use websites and the way people understand design? I would say invest in those things first. And then as you learn what people want and as you learn why those things are hard to build with just vanilla HTML and JavaScript, then you're going to have a real burning need to learn something like React or something like Vue. Um, okay, and then the last thing is follow the maker community. So that starts with, I'd say, Peter Levels. There's also Product Hunt. There's Makerlog. There's Work in Progress Chat. There's all these maker communities of people building things. And they're excited about what they're building. They're usually independent companies that are bootstrapped, that are just trying to get something off the ground. Follow these maker communities and participate in them, get feedback from them, and launch products as often as you can. If you can launch a product every month or every 3 months, that's going to give you the best learning experience above anything else you could ever do. Post it on Reddit, post it on Product Hunt, learn from the people on Product Hunt. They have a maker community here as well. Start your update right here. Create a goal. Say, I'm going to learn vanilla JavaScript, or even better, you don't want to start with something general like that. You want to learn a project, right? So you're going to learn how to. I'm going to learn how to make a clock in vanilla JavaScript. Start with that. Start with a project. The best thing you can do when you're learning is not follow a tutorial, is not follow a video series. You're going to get bored of those, and you're going to get stuck in what's called tutorial hell. You want to set your goal to build a project, even if it's super simple. Even if it's, I'm going to learn how to make a basic website in HTML and CSS. That could be your goal. And as long as you just keep setting little goals and achieving them, and then starting the next thing, you're going to search a lot on Google. You're going to say, hey Google, what's an H1 tag? Hey Google, can I, how do I get an attribute from an HTML element, right? You're going to Google a lot. That's going to be your learning process. That's going to be your tutorial. Don't rely on tutorials. Now, that being said, Wesboss is the single best place you can get tutorials. So if you're inspired to learn something very thoroughly, his courses are amazing. He has some free courses, I believe. He has one on Grid that was sponsored by sponsored by Firefox. I took this Learn Node course before I started building my own framework, Remake, and this was unbelievably valuable to me. The way he explains things is just so good. These courses are a tiny bit expensive, but if, this is the free one, JavaScript 30, and then there's a free Grid one that's on Mozilla. But yeah, if you want to learn like JavaScript in depth, go here. Like if you just want one place to just come and learn, this is it, in my opinion. You can go to, egghead.io. You can go to, what is it? It's like Full Stack Dev or something. I forgot the other one. We just saw an ad for it on another site. Front End Masters, right? Those are good ones, right? But like in general, you just like, if you do go the tutorial route, you want to start with one thing and end with that same thing. So you want to make sure whatever course you're choosing is the top of the line in terms of quality, in terms of conciseness, and in terms of keeping your interest, and in terms of the final product that you're going to end up building. So if you find something like that on Front End Masters, or you find something like that on egghead.io, which is also a great platform, go with it, but just stick with it from beginning to end. In my opinion, there's no easier person to follow than Wes Boss, and I'm not sponsored by him or anything. I just had a really good experience with his courses, and I've tried learning from other places, and I've just been burned by them over and over again. I'd say one of the worst places to learn is Udemy. They have very inexpensive courses. They're only like $9 or $10, but they're not going to keep your interest. They're not going to keep your interest. They're going to get boring after a couple of videos, and you're not going to stick with them. So what is $12.99 if you just flush it down the toilet? It's a waste of money. So even though it's inexpensive, it's not worth it. Now, I have heard of some people having a lot of success with Udemy. So if you go on Reddit or something like that, there are some course instructors that are known on Udemy for being really, really good. So I'm sure you could kind of find that, but my experience with Udemy has been bad, and in my opinion, you should just stick with something that's, maybe a little bit more expensive, but is going to be guaranteed to be high quality. Um, and I found the same thing with university courses. They just don't keep my interest. I would rather go on YouTube and search for a tutorial than a university course. Now, of course, if you have the motivation and you have the diligence to stick with a university course on, building web applications from start to finish, using some iPhone programming language, like what is that called? Swift, right? Or you want to learn about React, right? Maybe they have a course on React. Just do that, right? Whatever you can stick to. But I'd say that's the most important thing when it comes to a tutorial. But that comes with a huge caveat, which is don't learn from a tutorial, learn from projects. If you hit your limit with projects and you absolutely cannot learn any further without getting like a general overview of the entire ecosystem, then go for a tutorial, right? If you've kind of hit your limit, if you're seeing the same things over and over again, if you want to deep dive into a particular technology, that's a year or two into your development as a programmer, as a web developer. Don't start with that. Don't start with going down the tutorial rabbit hole. You'll quote unquote learn a bunch of things, but when you sit down to actually finish a project and do it from 0 to 100%, you'll realize that you really don't know anything. And that all this time you spent doing tutorials, nothing really totally sunk in. It made you feel like you were learning a lot, but you didn't actually learn as much as you thought you were. And sometimes you just need to experience that first before you actually, learn how bad it can be. In terms of getting stuck in that mindset of, oh, I'm learning, when you're really not. So that's all of my advice. I am happy that you were asking me about this and that you were, excited about becoming a UI UX designer. It's one of my passions. I'd say if I can just leave you with one thing, or actually, if I can leave you with two things. One is ship. That means build projects. Build projects and put them out into the world. The number one thing you can do to enhance your career is to ship projects. And then the next thing is to watch people using what you build. So if that's getting on a Zoom call with them, or having them record themselves, or just like sitting down with them at a coffee shop and saying, well, obviously not right now with COVID, but like, eventually, right? Just sitting down with them and saying, hey, can you use this and just talk through your thoughts out loud? Those two things, shipping projects and just focusing on shipping projects and then watching people use what you build and getting that feedback. That's going to be the two things that are going to accelerate you in learning what you want to learn more than anything else. So with that being said, good luck and farewell. And yeah, I appreciate you asking this question. Okay, bye.